Okay, so let's talk a little bit about landscape design in Unreal. So first thing I want to show you, a very basic landscape. This landscape is actually done just by loading some gray color image. It pushes the geometries up and down. You can also apply the multiple material to this landscape. You can also add some streets, some highway to it. You can also, if I just right click play from here, you can see the different materials on the ground. You can follow the valley. I don't think I can go up. Yeah, we cannot double jump here, but it's okay. So that is the rough model. I'm gonna demonstrate how you can do it from scratch. Okay, from scratch. So first thing I will do is create a new level. Right, there's nothing here, pretty clean. And the first thing I will do is click landscape, and I'm going to create a new landscape. By default, this landscape is 505. This is how many units for this landscape. This corresponds to pixels in Photoshop. In the future, if you want to use a height map to generate this landscape, that image should be 500 pixel by 500 pixel, same dimension. You can also bouncing up this value. For example, you want to do a really big landscape with higher resolution. You can do this, 255. If you do field world, this is the maximum dimension you can go, 8,161 pixel, or we call unit here. But this will make the site really huge and slow if you have a slow laptop. So I would prefer not to do such a high resolution. For the sake of our demonstration, we use a very low value. Let's do actually let me just redo it. Let's just using a default 15 by 15. Yeah, let's do a 15 by 15. So the resolution is 481, which is pretty low, which is okay. So now I can click create. Alright, you're done. So you have this landscape, 481 units. So if I want to do a sculpting, I can do the sculpt. I can control the strength of the tool. I can control the size of the brush. I can control the fall off of the brush. If I pen, you see this one will go up. If you're holding shift, this will go down. Okay, so holding shift is go down. That's how you sculpt the landscape. You can also see other options like erosion, for example. If you click, it basically add a little bit texture to your ground. You can also do ramp, flatten, different type of erosion, noise. So it's kind of like a sculpting tool. You can easily apply. Okay. However, instead of sculpt this by myself, I would like to load an external file to generate a terrain. This concept is actually pretty interesting. It's called height map. Okay, so for instance, if I export the file, I put this in the desktop, I give this name height map 2. It's a PNG file. I save it, and then I can open this file in Photoshop. Just take a look what this PNG file looks like. Height map 2, right? This is that PNG file. So let's go ahead, open with Photoshop. Okay, what you see is a gray color image. Some part is whiter than others. That is how the height in Unreal is being generated. I'm not sure if you guys familiar with Rhino. There is a command name is height map. It's using a gray color image to control the topography. It's exactly the same here. If you zoom in, do you see some color change here? It's very subtle. This is because I sculpt the landscape. Okay, so if you think about this as a reverse way, if I already have a gray color image, right, I can load this gray color image back to Unreal. Then I can generate a 3D topography, correct? Yeah. So that's exactly what we're gonna do now. And here I will first open some gray color image. This is called DEM map. Let's see, desktop. I'll show you. Something like this. In fact, if you Google DEM, digital elevation model, DEM map, you can find tons of this kind of map. Even the Mars, or the Moon, you can find it. The gray color value here represent a different height. Okay, so for instance, I really like this one. I'm going to just capture this image, copy that. So in Photoshop, I'm going to open the height map 2, right? This is the PNG file. I will Control V to paste. Maybe I want to scale down a little bit. That looks pretty good. Save it. Oh, I should flatten this layer first. Layers. Okay, Control E, Control S. All right. So this is the PNG file I just saved. And now back to Unreal. Right here, I can import the PNG. That's height map 2. See what happened? Immediately you have this whole topography being pushed up and down. One thing I would like to mention is dimension-wise, because we create these 481 units, right? As you know, in Unreal, the unit is centimeter, correct? It's centimeter. And if you click this topography generated, it automatically put a scale 100 here. Right, that's automatically done by Unreal. So as you know, 100 centimeter equals 1 meter, correct? Right. So if the site we define as 481 units at the beginning, right now is 481 meters by 481 meters. That makes sense? So this is how you can get a sort of the scale. And the height, it really depends on the original DEM model. I mean, there's a lot of formula you can calculate. Just for the sake of demonstration, I will just do a simple one, 20, which is not really accurate, but I think for me this is sort of close to the reality of how high this topography might look like. Now, so I can right click, play from here. You can sort of see the landscape, right? That looks okay. All right, you got this landscape, just one with a few clicks. Cool. All right, so let's go back to the landscape. You can definitely continue to work on this. You can do smooth. If you think some part is too bumpy, you can smooth it out. You can do sculpting. You can add other stuff in. Pretty straightforward. Okay. What I want to do now is to actually paint I want to add some color to this landscape, like grass, like dirt, river, that sort of thing. The way you can do it is through a very unique material. The name is the layered material. Later, I will give this file to you. This material file. You can load into your content folder. You can have some control. So there are only two of them here. One's terrain, one's a landscape. I will use the landscape. Okay. So for the terrain, I will load directly into the landscape material. Alright, it looks black, it's okay. Then I can go to my paint. If I click layers, you can see these layers. The beauty about this layered material is you already have the preset layers for rock, for grass. Let me just link to an individual file. So if I paint the information, that information will be saved into this individual file. You can also export this into a PNG file, or you can import a new PNG file. That's the way you can actually use Photoshop to do it. I will show this one by one. So I have a rock. I will have, this is mud. I have grass. I have wet. So this is all the layered material for now. Okay, it's automatic save. It's okay. So for instance, if I go to the grass layer, if I start to paint, you should see the grass will show up. In this kind of mode, you can use arrowhead in the keyboard to navigate. It's a little bit easier. You can zoom in. So here, if I keep painting, I got this green color cover this zone. Right? If I want to paint something like a mud, I can, choose the mud layer. I can paint. Here's a mud. I can choose wet. If I paint something here, right, this looks like a wet, kind of like a marshland kind of thing, right? And each of this, let's go to wet. If you right click, you can export to file. You can also import from another file. Okay, so let's see what happened. I just paint a little bit here, the spot as a wet. So if I right click, if I export file, you see it's a PNG. I give this name wet2, and I open this guy in Photoshop. Right, wet2, and you can see this is the spot I just painted, right, with a little bit circular shape. That's pretty nice, right? So now you can imagine if I have an image which somehow highlight this valley area, I can just using that one as my wet layer. So I think this is the one. I will just quickly make a selection. I will just drag my selection to this map. Not sure the location is right. We just eyeball it. I mean, you could do a better job later just by redo it. I will just add a little bit white color here. How do you feel color in Photoshop? I'm using that for a long time. Edit. Oh, here, fill. I'll fill this with my background color. Right. So I have something like this. I will save it. So this is the Control E to flat the layers. Control S to save it. So you have a new PNG file, right, which has a black and white image, and I'm going to load this guy as my layer control in Unreal. Okay, I'm loading this back to the white layer. Let's see what happens. Alright, I think it's calculating. And if I zoom out from the perspective to top view, right, you can see this is being painted in the right location. Oh, I think my Photoshop is not accurate. It's shifted a little bit. But you get the idea. You can use Photoshop if you have multiple layers. Some layer control the grass, some layer control the rock. You can quickly paint, right? Not in Unreal, paint in Photoshop. Then you can loading this. So here, if I play from here, you should be able to see this material show up. Right, this is white material. That looks pretty good. Yeah, go ahead. What's that?
When you export, like before you paint this huge, whatever is that water or something, like before you export it from Unreal, you paint a little white spot, right?
Yeah.
And when you upload everything in Photoshop,
Yes.
does it mean the new layer has to be the same color as the white spot? So they're going to be the same material when you create?
Well, basically, it's just a mask, right? So the white color means this white material will 100% control on that spot. If you paint gray color, that means this white layer will be somehow transparent. So you can still see the rocks, right? So it's kind of same as the height map. You use a gray color value control how strong or how would say the ownership of that pixel. All right. So right now we have 4 layers. So each layer can mask another layer if it's pure white. If it's black, it just give up that pixel. So that's how it controlled.
And also, is it possible, for example, the black part is wet right now, right?
Mm-hmm. No. The white part is.
Yeah, the white part is wet. Is it possible to change the material in Unreal? Like
Yes.
for whatever we have right now in Unreal.
Yes, that can be done with a different way. I mean, this full material is the default from the layered material I gave you. But later, for some reason, if you don't like this type of grass or you don't like this kind of white, you can update. Okay, this is done outside outside the landscape. I can show you. So basically, this material, right? The code is landscape. If you search, it's right here. If you double click, is an instance for this guy, terrain. If you search again, you see this guy is right here. Right. And this is the actual layered material. If I double click, that is all the layers associated with it. I don't really recommend you mess up this one unless you are sure, I want to replace some of these textures. As you can see, you have textures loaded into the base color, roughness, and normal, right? In the base color, you have this layer rock, layer mud, layer grass. If you go to the layer rock, this is the actual image. The grass, this is the actual image. So if you do want to replace or swap to a different texture, you can swap right here. If you click, this is all the available textures you can swap to. You can also, add your 2-dimension image. Then you can choose load to swap the grass. But things can go wrong. Just be careful. You want to know which layer is what. So this is the color map. The roughness is basically control the kind of like a bump mapping. Right? It's all gray color. and you have this normal map which control the interaction with the lighting. So it's kind of complicated. If you do have a new material, you want to have 3 of this, right? Color, roughness, and normal. Then you swap all 3. So later you can see a totally different one. But the one I give you is just a existing package, which already have everything. So I will repeat this really quick one more time. If I want to do something for the grass, right? For instance, for the grass, I don't have to paint, right? I can go back here. This is the resolution. You see, it's 481, right? That's the unit dimension from the terrain. You can actually just create a new file with this dimension. It should be fine. To save some time, I will just paint. I just paint something really quick, for my grass. Probably this doesn't really make much sense. I just want to show you. For example, grass is kind of scattered, right? Scattered everywhere. And also maybe in some part there's less grass than others. Right, so you have some image like that, and then we'll save it as a different file. Let's see, grass 2, and here in Unreal I'm loading this PNG. Okay, let's see what happened. You should see this kind of scattered grass show up in a few seconds. Alright, here we go. Cool, got the grass. Again, you can always manually paint the grass. I mean, this is just like a brush in Photoshop. You are painting the mask. That makes sense, right? So this is how you get this basic landscape. I will also cover one more thing on the SP lines, okay, which is available in Manage, Edit SP lines. Okay, I think this is something pretty unique in Unreal. As you know, Unreal is loading static mesh, right? It's not really a curve. It's not really a point. But SP line allow you to draw a line. If you're holding Control, click, you can just draw a curve here. Okay, it's really cool. And if you look at the details, this is the place you can select individual control point. You can move up and down, right? You can control the segments, so that is the entire curve. You can associate a geometry with this curve. So right now I think there's no geometries. I see the SP line mesh is empty. But if I click Add, in a 0, I can load the geometry here. It's sort of like the Snappy Road, right? So I happen to have my Snappy Road. Do I have it? Right here. Right, this is Snappy Road geometries. So if I have, let's see, this triple highway, I just load into this SP line. The triple highway will show up, right? So exactly like Snappy Road. You can also click this point. You use W. You can move up and down. You can manipulate the shape. If you want to continue to draw this, you can just simply hold the Control key. Then you can add additional points. Okay, so you can make this road pretty long, as long as you want. Even better, this SP line allow you to deform the landscape. Do you see this one? It could actually raise or lower the terrain to match with your road or SP line. So here, if I click deform terrain based on all SP lines, see what happened? Maybe I should play right here. You can see it. Right click, play here. So I have this street network, but you also see the terrain is being matched, being deformed to match with my highway. Okay, I think that it's not exactly accurate, but I think it's pretty close. This only for your building site, not for the city. Yeah, because this one do not have the way to add the light, street light or other details. It only give you the limited meshes you can add in. So here I can go back to this SP line. I can click, maybe just move up a little bit. So it's not really, show the grass. So you need some manual adjustment to this. If you really want to see the, the potentials, you can. I would just do some extreme. So this one is, actually, let's delete this piece. I have this overlapping. Okay, so I make this one really high. I push this one really low. Okay, it's kind of like a curved shape. Then I do deform the landscape. Right, you sort of see this part works pretty well, but this part you have a little bit issues. So you could play with this tool. I think in general this works pretty well for simple roads, like a street roads. But for super complicated one, you do want to maybe back to the snappy road, which give you a little bit more control. Yeah, I would recommend this one over snappy road if it's just for your internal. And also the road is not necessarily be connected. I mean, this one is kind of like snappy road. If you have multiple roads, if they intersect with each other, you can have as many as you want. But if you want to connect them, you probably want to hold in control and then drag it to the end point. They will be automatically connected. Otherwise, they are totally separate. So in this case, I create a brand new SP line, and for this SP line, I will choose a different profile. So I have this single. Do I have a single road? Yeah, I think this is a single road. I'll be loading that. What? Oh, this is the intersection. That's wrong. Oh, this is two-line road. Okay, I can select that. Make sure you choose all the segments. Right. And then the SP line meshes. I will click 0, and I'm going to load this mesh. So this mesh is in. Okay. Then I can, continue to manipulate this. Drag down a little bit. I can do other stuff. I can also do the deformation. So the landscape gonna start to morph to match with my road. I will do a third person. A little bit easier. Right click. Sometimes right click is not working. You have to get out of the landscape mode. Right click. And then choose play from here. Here we go. So we have this guy. Yeah, I think landscape is not exactly match, which is fun. Oh, okay. Where's that road? Right, so I have this SP line, which has the deformed landscape. It looks pretty okay, right? I also have another one, and also have my landscape. Cool. So this is how you paint or deform the landscape, building some basic street network. The next one I will show you really quick about foliage. I think this is already covered probably with another tutorial, and here I just do something really quick because I think it's kind of easy. So if I have some basic shape, for example, some flowers, I have a bunch of them in my content, like a plants, grass, I can just drag it into the foliage. So have this foliage. You can also see this looks like a paint, right? Paint brush. And you can control, for example, the density. Let me see. Right now it's 100. Let's give this to 400. So if I start to paint, you see the grass. This is actually flowers gonna grow from here. And that looks pretty nice. If you're holding Shift, you can remove this pen brush. So Shift is always counter or cancel. So that's how you get this, pretty nice. In a paint mode, make sure you use the arrow key in the keyboard so you can still navigate. I kind of prefer use arrow key. So here I can paint some nice grasses. You can also control, the scale and other stuff. Make it bigger, smaller. So now if I get out of this mode and then play from here, I have some really nice grass with flowers. Okay, so that's how you get this kind of nice natural landscape.
I have a question about the foliage paint.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make it so that, like when I used it, I did it in a couple different places, and then I went to remove one, and I didn't want to necessarily have to paint it gone.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't just, if you delete one, it deletes. It's like all one
Right.
painting. Is there a way to make it separate paint instances or something?
Well, if you're holding control, the Shift, right, you can remove the paint. That is one way.
Right.
You can also make selections. This is my paint, right? If you want to select just some of this paint, you can do it, and then you can delete that individual paint. So that is how.
But it's always like, even if you paint later, it's always one single instance.
Yes, it is a single instance.
Okay.
As you can see, this is kind of associated with the landscape, so it's not a static mesh. Yeah, it's kind of weird objects. Otherwise, it won't render so fast. You can have thousands of trees and grass. It doesn't, harm the performance, because it's not really a static mesh. The drawback is you cannot really individually edit this anymore. The only way you can make a selection is go back here and do the selection. If you want to remove some of them, you probably have to holding Control, holding Shift, to just paint again, to erase them. One thing nice about this is if you have another type of vegetation system like this one, for example, if you drag it again, right? So you have two of them here. if you highlight both of them with this check, and then if you start to paint, right? Let's zoom in a little bit. So you should see they both show up because I'm highlighting both of them. So if you have like a forest with a couple of hundred type of vegetation, you can just have one paint. It just evenly distribute right here. You can also uncheck. If you uncheck this and paint again, it will be just that type of a single vegetation. So it's kind of flexible. So here, if I paint again, it just is green stuff. Right, for this green stuff, I maybe want to have a higher resolution, so a higher density. So here we can bouncing up this to 500. If I paint again, oh, it's pretty dense now. Then I can right-click, play from here. I can see it right here. Okay, so they're pretty dense. Yeah, so this is how you get this kind of ecosystem in Unreal. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with the foliage. I would encourage you to check out my other tutorial. I actually covered more. For example, you can save this file as external control. You can double click, oops, and the wrong one. Let me save this guy. Then I can show in content browser, it's this guy. You have tons of other controls like orientation, scale, randomness. So check that out. Right? I'm not gonna cover this for this tutorial, but it's all available. I would encourage you to play with it. Anything else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much about the landscape design in Unreal. Hopefully, I think this could help you to do your site. You maybe want to work with your Rhino model. Right? Some part is hard paved regular geometry. Some part is this kind of organic nature kind of topography. So you can work that out. Of course, you can paint trees as well. It's auto saving now. I will just show that super quick because I think I did this in another tutorial. You can paint the tree. I just disable the other two. So for the tree, if I paint, probably I need a bigger brush with maybe bigger densities. Let's make the radius larger. Not sure what happened with this tree. It doesn't show up. That is strange. We just drag another tree. Okay. Yeah, there's something wrong with the other tree, but this tree show up. Well, this is not a good one, but you got an idea. Well, this one is actually a two-dimension mask tree. But anyhow, you got idea. Anything in static mesh, you can drag it, you can paint it. You know. Yeah, this is some tree. I think this tree is okay for like a background, right? Pretty far away. But you don't want to go too close. They are just a mask. If I play from here, I can show you they are not really good looking. It's kind of like this. which is okay. All right. Yeah, it's a 2-dimension mask. Cool. Let me close my screen capture.